it is moving so stinking fast. The opportunities, I think, really kind of the opportunities that we read about that are most interesting to people are not available in the public markets. Hey, everybody. Super excited to talk with you. I can't remember what I called my podcast. I used to call it the Thought and Action Podcast, but this is going to be an awesome podcast, whatever you want to call it. I have Erik Dillon on with me. I'm super excited to talk to him. We're going to talk about emerging tech today and how to get into opportunities in the emerging tech space. It is moving so stinking fast. The opportunities, I think, really kind of the opportunities that we read about that are most interesting to people are not available in the public markets. And I get little pieces of questions that people have all the time. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get the expert on. And let's just talk through some of these things. So Aaron, just to give you a kind of high level, Aaron and I, we go back to our volleyball days, which I love to talk about, but more importantly, he's a good friend. He's an investor. He's a longtime kind of institutional kind of guy he's the guy that if you get those prospectuses that are, 50, 60 pages, he reads them all, right? He's a reader. He's very knowledgeable, and he's put those skills to use in providing access to some of these opportunities, which we're going to talk about. Well versed in them, and I want to kind of pick his brain here for the next 15, 25 minutes or so. And a lot of these names you're going to know. Some of them you might not, but I guarantee by the end of our conversation you're going to be interested, and I'm happy to have follow up after this as well. So consider this a flyover. And with some kind of really, I think, some sound bites that you'll find of interest. So I'm going to stop talking because the intro is great, but the information's better. So Aaron, you want to talk about let's start off with like the big name, SpaceX. That's what everyone likes to talk about.
Okay.
Because I think we can kind of get our feet wet with that, and then we can dig into some other things that I think are really a little bit more spicy. But let's start with the big dog. Let's talk about SpaceX.
Yeah, so SpaceX is which I think some people may have read about it in the paper, certainly maybe seen some videos on it, but just for those that maybe have not, right? It's a rocket company, right? They send rockets, and they've developed reusable rocket technology. So they can literally send payload to space and then bring the booster back and land it on Earth, and they can reuse that. So that drives down costs, that increase the frequency of launches, right? And it's also allowed them to build a business called Starlink, which is satellite internet, right? And they now effectively have the largest satellite internet business in the planet. And they're in 2024, they've stood up and gotten approved by almost every country across the globe, right, to offer their satellite internet services. So with SpaceX, you really get two businesses. You get that launch business, and you also get the satellite internet business. Of course, Elon Musk is the founder and owner of majority owner of SpaceX, and it's an incredible company. Then $15 billion in revenue last year. They effectively have a monopoly really in those two businesses that they operate in, and the opportunity ahead of them is huge, right? So Starlink, their satellite internet business, is projected it has about 4.5 million subscribers right now. They're looking to ramp that number up pretty substantially. There's 2.5 billion people on the planet that does not have access to the internet. So no internet, not like slow internet, no internet, right? So the opportunity is really quite incredible. They have I saw a statistic this past week, they had 95% market share of the rocket launch business globally, right? So they are just dominating across the board for all things space. And it's really because of their technology and solutions, they're opening up what's now being called the space economy, right? So because it's so inexpensive to send payload to space, it's opening up a whole slew of interesting opportunities for people to consider. So, the company has about a $390 billion valuation right now. So this is not a small company. Mm-hmm. It's been around for about 20 years. So well-established, huge customer base, great brand. Good revenue, and I think we're very bullish on where the company could go in the future and kind of capitalize on the opportunities ahead of it.
They got no competition, and they got a Super Bowl commercial, which I forgot about.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, if you have a chance, like Google SpaceX, right, and specifically their new rocket they're testing is called Starship, right, and they literally catch the booster with these two mechanical arms as it comes down to land. It's like something you see out of a movie. And that booster rocket, when you watch it, you just got to remember that's the size of a 30-story tall building, right? So I'm in Manhattan here. There's 30-story tall buildings all over the place, and it's a little bit hard to contemplate that something that big is being caught out of the air after coming back down from space. So it's really quite an amazing company with an amazing technology.
I mean, I'm sending my kids to college, and one of them wants to be an engineer, and that's literally what I tell them. I'm like, you're going to be catching buildings out of space. So
Yes.
like, oh, really? I show them the video, and it's like, it's inspirational. It's really cool stuff.
It's so inspirational. I mean, I actually love, I have young children too, and I love that they get to see that, right? I remember when I was like a kid in the 80s, right? And you would watch the rocket launches. It was a huge deal, right? So this is their, I suppose, their equivalent. But I actually think this is better than what we had in the 80s, right? But it's nonetheless, it is definitely inspirational. So, yeah.
So it's got room to run. I mean, is the point. Like, I think
Yeah.
a lot of times we talk, I mean, there's some people that are going to watch this, you know, they think stocks and bonds, and they think things are, you know, they're very fluid. You get to look at things go up and down. You don't necessarily know why. But in this particular case, you know, this literally, like, the sky is the limit, the figurative and literal limit, where they have dominant market share. They've got the ability to really grow. I mean, can you talk, you know, what you think this thing could grow upwards of over the next, like, you know, 2 to 4 years?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about just to focus on Starlink. So when you buy SpaceX stock, you get the rocket launch business and the satellite internet business, right? That's two companies under the same stock. So if you just focus on Starlink itself, I mean, this is a company. I mean, 2.5 billion people that have no satellite internet, right? They're putting Starlinks on planes. United has it on the plane now. There's several other airlines that have it on planes. People that have boats and RVs swear by it. Some people, like in rural Texas, are putting them on their cars so that they can have cell service and they can talk to people on their phone because cell service is spotty. I have friends that live in rural areas and they're using Starlink instead of, you know, the local internet service provider. So there's a number of different applications there, not alone just these countries that have no access to the internet. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they go from 4.5 million subscribers to 100 million to 200 million.
Wow.
I mean, so if you think about that business alone, just Starlink, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that could be a $500 billion business, even a potentially $1 trillion business. I think it's very hard for people to compete. How else do you get? They have 7,000 satellites in space, Starlink. So who else is going to put 7,000 satellites in space to compete? The only way to do that is to use SpaceX rockets to get that payload to space. So it's a very interesting business with a big moat, right?
Right.
And I think that also helps drive the valuation of the company as well, because I think you get a premium on the multiple, right? The revenue multiple there. So yeah, I think greenfield in terms of opportunity and the amount of customers that they could have and subscribers that they can have, and very hard for people to come in and compete. There probably will be competition in time, but I think for the next 5 to 10 years, these guys have a lock on the market, right? So really, I think really interesting opportunity.
So they're changing the game on this space side. And I want to shift and go towards, can you talk about OpenAI and XAI at the same time, or would you like to do one? Because I think sometimes it's helpful for people to see the differences while you go through it.
Absolutely. So maybe more broadly, just AI in general. I think about AI investing in 3 buckets, right? So there's what I call AI infrastructure, there's AI platforms, and then there's AI apps, right? So
thanks for zooming me out, because I always get so focused, and you're like, back up, Erik. Okay, fine.
No. That I think that's interesting, because we have some opportunities in a couple of those different buckets, right? So
that's right.
So AI infrastructure is like semiconductor chips, data centers, electricity, right? You're probably reading about these things in the paper, right? NVIDIA, right? That type of stuff. Meta is building a nuclear power plant next to the data center that they're going to build. These stories are in the Wall Street Journal, et cetera. That's AI infrastructure, right? AI platform is like the OpenAIs and the XAIs. It's the ChatGPTs, the large language models that you're reading about, right? And that's kind of that platform play as well. And then apps are literally like the last mile. So companies that are building solutions that are built on top of like an OpenAI or an XAI, right? And to kind of bring you the last mile so that you can kind of dial in a solution for accountants or a solution for lawyers or a solution for financial advisors, right? And it's that last bit that kind of really makes it easy for people to implement and use the AI solution, right? So to your point, OpenAI and XAI are in that platform space, right?
Right.
And those guys also build some applications as well, kind of taking it to the last mile. But largely they're in the platform space. And their business is large language models. So if you haven't used ChatGPT, which I think most people have, at least kick the tires on it, right? It's incredible. Like these large language models have been around now for about 2.5 years. And I think most people in 2024 weren't really quite sure at the beginning of the year if these were going to be important or be impactful. I think by the end of the year, everyone's kind of nod their head, said, yes, large language models and AI is going to kind of be around and change everything. And now in 2025, I think we're going to start to see businesses implement. So ChatGPT and OpenAI were the first ones out of the gate. They clearly have a big lead. They have a ton of market share, right? But XAI is an Elon Musk company, and he has visions of catching up fast to what they're doing at OpenAI, and they're delivering kind of great results. So OpenAI's got a clear lead. They generated about $4 billion in revenue last year. They have focus on anywhere from 12 to 15 billion in revenue forecasted for 2025. Their 2029 forecast for revenue is $100 billion. So this company has big, bold aspirations. Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, was just with President Trump 2 weeks ago, and Masayoshi Son from SoftBank and Larry Ellison from Oracle. They announced the Stargate project. You might have seen that. That's a $500 billion data center over the next 5 years that they're going to build to power their AI. And they started building out the first data center in Texas, right, in Abilene, Texas. So really interesting business, and they keep delivering these new models at both OpenAI and XAI. So like new models that are coming out is the O3 model, which I just talked to a gentleman this morning. He thinks that's like artificial general intelligence, which is like human level intelligence, deep research, right? They have a solution called Operator where you can open up a browser and talk to ChatGPT and it will do things on your computer with your browser open. You can program it and schedule tasks and it will do these things while you sleep, right? So anything that you can do on a web browser, the AI will do it for you. Right.
It's this thing, it blows my mind how much, it seems like every 3 to 4 months they come up with something that's just like revolutionary. Like I know you didn't even bring up the whole video and Tyler Perry like scrapping in $400 million movie studio because he's like, look at what this thing can do. I mean, it's wild. So when you look at like I don't know, I kind of want to pause for a moment. These things are all private market. Correct. And this what blows my mind is that it's like these things are moving so fast. Like we look at OpenAI as an example. Every 2 to 3 months they come out with something that is like, I think it's like paradigm changing.
Correct.
The idea of me writing a phrase and having an artificial intelligence bot or software do something on my computer or do something for me in the social media space,
right,
is wild. It's going to be so efficient. It's going to make our lives like so efficient. The things they're going to be able to build is going to be so amazing.
That's right.
It almost is like it can't stop to say, hey, you know what, we need to go public because they're just zooming on, and there's so much private market money. That's right. To dump into it and grow it. I mean, you kind of want to hold on. You want to get on the train and hold on while you can because it's going. How much have you seen this company grow in the past like 2 years? Yeah,
so I mean, OpenAI, when ChatGPT came out, it had about $30 billion valuation, right? Microsoft had invested pretty heavily into the company at that point, and then they launched ChatGPT, and it just took off. And the company now has a $300 billion valuation.
10x.
Right? In 2 years' time. So yeah, I mean, this is a company, so to that point, it's like, where could it go from here is the next logical question, right? For both OpenAI and XAI. XAI is about a $102 billion valuation right now.
Is it overvalued? Because you'll hear that every once in a while. It's like, oh, this is just too high.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for a second. So the brass tacks on AI, and I think people are now saying like the quiet part out loud, which is AI is going to replace people's jobs. So the math and the ROI, the return on investment for companies, is to say I have an employee that does this, that employee costs $100,000 plus benefits, or I can have an AI do 90% of that person's job with the same quality, and OpenAI or XAI will charge me $25,000 to do that person's job. So this is now like what's being talked about and discussed. So to your point, like where can these companies go and can they drive revenue? As these shifts happen, right? And people are effectively replaced with AI or transition to do other things because AI can do most of their job for them now, and probably do it with better, higher quality and more consistency. To be completely honest, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to unlock an immense amount of efficiency and earnings for companies. So they'll do those things. They'll be effectively forced to, whether they like it or not, to survive. And if they don't, they'll start to fail, and people will come in and buy their businesses, right? It's like creative destruction. Yeah. So these companies have a long way to run, I think. I mean, we're talking about businesses that, if you rewind 20 years, you think about the Googles, the Metas, the Amazons, right? All these companies, that was like that tranche or vintage of technology companies. This OpenAI, XAI, SpaceX, all these companies, this is that current vintage coming through. But to your point, they're not going public. They're staying private. They're staying private for longer. So I think it's really important that people get invested into these companies to have kind of a diversified U.S. equity exposure. This is going to be the next Mag 7. OpenAI, XAI, SpaceX. This is the next Mag 7. This is kind of what we're talking about, right? So I think these AI companies have a long way to run, because that ROI, return on investment, like AI replacing the human worker, is starting to crystallize. And I think CEOs and CFOs are starting to understand that opportunity, and it's going to start to get implemented here, I think, in 2025 and 2026. So that will be major drivers of revenue for these AI companies.
I don't want everybody to well, I should say everybody, but I don't want the people that are worried about this to tune out. I think this is going to be a real net positive. I think we got some things to work through, but at the end of the day, for purposes of this podcast, it's an awesome opportunity to invest in innovative technology that is going to appreciate greatly. And I think about this versus something like Campbell's Soup, or this versus something like Exxon. The upside of this is tremendous, and there's really no way to participate other than in the private markets.
That's right.
So let's go. You talked about AI replacing human jobs. Let's be a great segue to something like Figure.
Yes.
And Humanoid Robotics. Can you talk about that company? I did not know about it until you introduced it to me, and it's crazy. Talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so I think a big emerging trend, like you were talking about emerging trends at the onset, in 2025 and 2026 is going to be robots autonomously operated by AI, right? So, and robots, I think, are going to take shape in a few different ways. One will be self-driving cars, which if you live in like San Francisco and a few other places out west, you can go and get into a Waymo self-driving car, and the car drives itself. There's no person sitting behind the steering wheel. Tesla's coming out with their self-driving car solution. That's an AI controlling the car, 100% autonomous and driving you places, right? Other types of solutions are AI controlling drones for military purposes and surveillance purposes, right? Submarines, same thing. And then, of course, humanoid robots, right? So humanoid robots, it sounds almost a little cheeky to talk about it, but it's very real business. There's 3 companies in particular. Well, Tesla has a humanoid robot called Optimus, right? But there's 3 what I would call pure play opportunities. All of those are private, right? Private companies. And that's Figure AI, 1X Technologies, and Clone Robotics. So I have my eye on all 3 of those. Figure is now to a point where it's big enough where we brought a fund to invest into the company. So Elon Musk and Brett Adcock, who's the CEO of Figure AI, have both forecasted that there's going to be 10 billion humanoid robots on the planet by 2040. So that's 15 years from now.
Now, compare that to the number of people. So,
Yeah, so
10
8
billion
billion.
robots. How many people?
8 billion people in the world right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so like we're talking more than a 1-to-1 ratio. And of course, we're here in the United States, so naturally we're the richest country in the world. I think we're going to have probably more humanoid robots here in the US than probably most people in other parts of the world. So I could easily see us having a 1-to-1 ratio, or at least you're going to start to see robots showing up on the streets here within the next 5 years. I mean, Adcock, who's the CEO of Figure, thinks that we'll have robots in homes like pretty consistently in most American homes within 5 years' time. So like,
What does he think they'll do? Like, because I read that and I'm like, you're probably more keen to like, this is what they could do. What do you think they'll do?
Yeah, so one, I think, with folks that are elderly and perhaps who would traditionally have gone to a nursing home, I think the humanoid robot will allow them to stay in their homes and be able to take care of them, right? So that's kind of one opportunity. One use case. Home security is another one. Robots obviously don't need to sleep, so it can monitor your house and make sure everyone's safe. Gardening, housekeeping. The robot can literally like do the dishes, do your laundry, fold it, put it away, right? Vacuum, like anything that a person could do. Mow your grass, right? All of those things are possible with the humanoid robot. But then I probably think maybe on the more intellectual side, I suppose. The robot is powered by an AI. It's powered by a ChatGPT, like a large language model. So it has access to the internet. It can speak and listen, and it can see. So it's always recording data. So it's learning as it's in the house. It's learning about you and your family. It notices if you're happy or sad. You come home from work and you're having a tough day, it will notice that and say things to you that make you feel better. It will cook dinner, have dinner ready for you. You just send it a text that it have cooking dinner ready for you before you get home, right? So, I mean, it's interesting. And then if you have children, you can imagine, people have a dog at their house and people love their dogs. Like dogs are like, they're part of their family, right? Dogs don't talk. They can't communicate with you on an intellectual level, right? But they're there and they're happy to see you when you show up. I think you're going to see similar things. I think humans will get really attached to their humanoid robot, right? Not because it's always there. It also has a human form, so I think that will do stuff to our psyche. I think our children will love these robots like they love an animal, like a pet in the family. But also, it'll be a tutor. So your children will be able to talk to the AI within the humanoid robot, and the AI can answer questions for them, and it can teach them things, and you can tell the robot to teach your kids things, and it will teach them things throughout the day. And of course, the AI will never die. So if the robot gets old or broken, you get a new robot. The AI lives on. The AI can come with you on your phone. The AI can come to your office and your desktop. So I think we're going to have effectively like a family AI, right? That will help you throughout all aspects of your life. And even throughout the generations, that same AI will stay with you through the generations. That AI will manifest itself through these humanoid robots, which I think will make it very tangible, right, for families to interact and engage with these robots. Yeah, but I think in probably 5 years' time, like the days of chores at home will be over, right? The robots.
My kids are rooting for you on that, and I need that to not happen to keep them whipped into shape. I need to have something for them to like earn and do.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, like I hear this stuff, and it kind of like it candidly it like freaks me out. And I was talking to an AI buddy of mine, and he was saying like, AI knows it scares you, so it's trying not to.
Right.
Like, dude, that's even scarier.
There's some truth to that.
There's some truth to that. Again, like for the purpose of this podcast, these are all things. These are all trends that are happening. You brought up, autonomous cars.
Right.
These things are already happening.
This is happening.
So there is a, regardless of how it kind of makes you feel, like to your point, like computers, computers were literally replaced a person that was a person that computed. There was a room full of people that were computing things, and they replaced it with a computer. So this isn't the first time that jobs have been, I say replaced, but basically people have been shifted into other areas by technology. Right. So it's not, I think with a little perspective, it's not necessarily a bad thing. My goal is to help you make money on trends.
That's right.
Right? That's what this is all about. These are trends. These are real. And you look at it, you're like, how many robots are out there right now? Zero.
If we
really go the way that you're talking about, and it really is as useful as we say it is, which it sounds like it could be, this is a huge potential money-making opportunity. I don't want people to lose,
So
that
just to
perspective.
drive that home, right? So even if Adcock and Musk are called 25% right, it's not 10 billion humanoid robots. It's 2.5 billion humanoid robots on the planet in 10 years' time. That's an incredible market. The target addressable market is massive, right? And you have to imagine there's probably going to be like 5 or 6 of these companies that were going to be winners. I'm of the belief that Figure will be one of those 5 or 6 companies, right? So the robots are projected, once these guys hit scale, to sell for $20,000 a year. So you can think about what that revenue model will look like. You're talking about, you could probably finance the robot like you would finance a car, right? Perhaps you lease the robot. If you're having a party, there'll be companies where you can get like 2 more robots to come so that they can be waiters for you, right, for the evening.
Like, we gotta stop. We gotta finish our podcast. It's like my mind starts to spin.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting opportunities with this.
Like
but yeah, I
Jetsons,
think the time
man.
it is like the Jetsons. Rosie,
cool.
Rosie from the Jetsons. Yeah,
exactly.
So I think it's a big the figure, just to drive this home. Their current secondary market valuation is like 4.5 billion, right? And there's rumors that they're doing a new round that's going to be substantially higher than that, right? So,
Well, I mean, you look at this versus you were talking those, 100 million valuations for ChatGPT, or sorry, OpenAI and XAI. I mean, the ability for this to still grow is huge.
100%.
So not that I'm trying to talk about one versus the others being a better opportunity. I think they're all good opportunities. This just has a much larger potential growth path.
Agreed.
Than some of the other ones.
I agree.
Let's talk through. Let's do Anduril and then let's hit Groq. I love Groq, so let's do that last. Let's do Anduril first.
Yeah, so Anduril's another one of these AI, autonomous controlled, opportunities. So Anduril is a defense technology company, right? They make aerial drones as well as submarines that are autonomously controlled by AI, or can be autonomously controlled by AI. They're already approved by the Department of Defense here in the United States and several other Western militaries, and they generated $1 billion in revenue last year. The CEO was Palmer Luckey, so he's an interesting character. Wears Hawaiian shirts all the time, right? Has a mullet, right? He's an interesting guy, but he's brilliant. He's one of these wonder kinds. So he started a company called Oculus, which is the Meta, Facebook's new virtual reality technology. He sold that to Meta. He sold that to Meta in 2014 for $2.5 billion. So this is his second business, right, with Anduril, and had just an immense amount of success. So I'm very bullish on the opportunity for Anduril. I think if you've noticed in the Ukraine war, the Ukrainian army is using drones, right, as a military tactic. And I think it's pretty eye-opening for us here in the United States that we need to have that type of technology too, not only to attack, but also to defend against drone attacks as well. So Anduril develops solutions in that space, and I think probably my last thought on the company is most defense primes, most defense contractors have this concept where they do cost plus with the Pentagon. So whatever the cost is, they just add like a 15-20% profit margin, and that's how the business works, which I know of no other business on the face of the planet that operates that way. Most people have a product, set a price, maybe they negotiate that price, and then that's it. And then they have a profit margin, right? And they have to deliver on time. And if they don't deliver on time, that's a problem. That's not how these defense primes work with the Pentagon. So Anduril does work that way. And I would call it a more traditional, they make a product, this is the price, they have a margin built in, they sell it to the Pentagon, they deliver on time or ahead of schedule. It's kind of a paradigm shift, which is odd to say because that's how most businesses work, but that's what Anduril's doing at the Pentagon. So they're running circles around the incumbents. And I anticipate that the company is going to be very big. So they're a $28 billion valuation. I could see these guys going 4 or 5x in the next 5 years, right, Anduril?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish. I don't know. I love Groq. Let's talk about Groq.
Groq's
just
great.
Because so you can compare them even to like NVIDIA and like what because
100%.
people have seen NVIDIA and they're like, oh my gosh, I could have got in on that. I'm like, well,
this is an opportunity for that.
Enter Groq. Yep.
Yeah. So Groq, we talked about those 3 buckets, right, for AI investing, like AI infrastructure, platforms, and apps. Like this is an infrastructure play, right? To your point around NVIDIA, this is semiconductor chips. right? And Groq also has a cloud platform specifically for AI, right? And I think, as discussed, we talked about the use cases of AI. We talked about humanoid robots. Like, all of these things require this AI infrastructure to work. So if you start to think about, AI being in every aspect of our lives, and we're constantly using it, like we're using the internet, right? And all that data is being created and being stored, and these AIs are running and thinking and doing reasoning and everything. That's all compute, right? So the question, it kind of begs the question, is like, well, where are we going to get all these chips? Okay, and how are we going to meet all this demand for the compute? And like, very smart people like Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, has been talking about like the demand for compute is going to go up by like 1 billion times in the next 10 years. It's like beyond exponential. It's like vertical growth, right? So big opportunities. And with AI in particular, there's training an AI model, which is GPUs from NVIDIA, right? That's kind of like the industry standard. And then there's running an AI model, which is called inference. That's the technical term, is called inference. So in the long run, the very smart people are saying like 70 to 80% of total compute will be for inference, running AI models, right? Not training them, but running them, because everybody will be using these models and they'll be running all the time, right? So 80% will be running the AI models. Groq makes AI chips specifically for running AI models. So this is kind of skating to where the puck's going, right? With an investment in Groq. And they not only make their own AI chips for inference, which are called LPUs, language processing units, but they also have a cloud service solution as well. So if you're an AI developer making an AI app, and you need to run your app solution, you can tie into Groq, and it's much more efficient and less expensive than kind of using NVIDIA GPUs. It's 10 times faster for inference. It uses 10 times less electricity, which means the cost to run the AI, the chips are lower. So it's a really interesting company. It's very well run. Jonathan Ross is the CEO. He was the gentleman that created and built out and ran Google's AI chip solution. It's called Tensor Processing Unit, the TPU, at Google Cloud. So he built out that business, got it going, and then he left Google to start Groq to do it on his own with his own company. So really, like, great executive team, incredible business. Just this week, they announced that they launched a 19,000 LPU data center with Saudi Aramco Digital. It's now live. It's the largest data center in the Middle East. Saudi Aramco Digital also just re-upped with a $1.5 billion contract. Huge opportunity for the company.
And
it's
what
incredible.
is their valuation?
3.1 billion.
So their valuation is 3.1 billion, and Saudi just re-upped with a 1.5 billion dollar contract.
Yeah, this company.
You want to talk about like buying low.
100%. So like this is I think a really interesting opportunity, right? I mean, the company just started to monetize its business in like summer of 2024, so like 6, 7, 8 months ago. So this opportunity, I think, is really eye-opening. Just a few other stats. They have 652,000 AI developers that are using Google Cloud. That's an immense amount of AI developers, right? That community. That's a big deal for these apps that are getting built, right? That we talked about earlier. They're targeting to ship 2 million LPUs by the end of 2025, and they'll have 108,000 by the end of first quarter 2025. So they're starting to scale production and delivery of LPUs out in the marketplace. So this is just like, I got to tell you, I've been around, right? This company, in my opinion, is on the verge of a major breakout, right? And I think all of the trends are heading in the right direction. I think it's the right executive team, and it's the right product for what's happening with AI. Inference, I think, is the place that you really want to be in the future. So yeah,
We should have started with this. Hopefully people like listen for 30 minutes. We should have started. Just hit them right at the. I might cut this part and put it at the.
Put
beginning.
it at the beginning. Yeah, I really love this space. Yeah,
I think this space is amazing, and I think, to your point, skating to where the puck is going, this is like a no-brainer. All right.
Yeah.
We went long, but I need you to, because I think it's super important for people to understand diligence.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I hate, because it's a strong word. I don't like misleading information, and so from time to time I'll see things in the Wall Street Journal or wherever, and they'll say, hey, want to get into SpaceX, you're probably getting ripped off or something random like that.
Yeah,
Like, oh my gosh. Or now there's a SpaceX ETF.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, and I think the way you do this is super unique, and this to me is the value you bring when people say, hey, why should I do something, I want to invest. Why would I do it with you versus like a Link 2 or one of these other places?
Yeah.
Can you talk about diligence and what it means when you get access to these funds, what you do?
Yeah. So look, our whole mission is to help individual investors, right, in partnership with their financial advisors, access this pre-IPO stock asset class, right, and to do that with institutional rigor, as you mentioned earlier, right. So we've worked very hard to develop relationships with brokers and owners, right? Venture capital funds, pensions, endowments, and foundations in this market, right? That own these pre-IPO stocks or have access to people who own these pre-IPO stocks to develop those relationships. We have like 50 pre-IPO stockbrokers, and we have several more venture capital funds, et cetera, that we have direct relationships with that potentially want to sell a particular stock at any given time. So that's almost, it looks and smells more like fixed income trading, right? You can't just, open up Schwab and like type in a ticker and buy something. You actually have to call a desk and have a conversation, and then they will find a counterparty and you will do the trade kind of off market, if you will. And that's effectively what pre-IPO stock, trading looks like. So we've been lucky. We've developed these relationships. I'm proud to say we have like a good reputation in the market. So when I call a counterparty, there's like trust there, right? It's a little bit kind of old school Wall Street, Eric, right? So there's and that's an important component of the business. Ultimately, what that does is that gives us great price discovery. So as we go out and we're looking to purchase a particular private company stock, pre-IPO stock, we'll get a lot of offers back, right? Because people trust us and we have a big network. And that allows us to make sure that we're getting the best price, right? The technical New York term is not getting your face ripped off. So we want to make sure that we're not getting our face ripped off and that we're being good fiduciaries for our investors and getting the best price possible. To your point around due diligence, once we identify that kind of best price possible, we need to make sure that the person that we're buying from is like a good actor, right? So are they registered with the SEC properly? Have they filed paperwork? Do they have a good auditor? Like all of these things are important, right? To make sure that we're checking all the boxes and that, the person that we're transacting with is a rock solid counterparty. And then lastly, I think the last piece of value that we add is around portfolio construction, right? So we've talked about these 6 companies that we have available for purchase here. The minimums are $2,500 per fund. The intent is that people can come in and build their own portfolio. So whether you really like one company and you just want to go big in that one company, that's fine. If you want to do equal weight across all 6, that's great too. If you want to say, hey, I love humanoid robotics, so I'll do overweight to humanoid robotics and AI infrastructure, and I'll kind of put the rest of it equal weight. However you want to express your views. I mean, that's where Eric can obviously help you build out, the portfolio and kind of understand what your risk profile is and how to access these particular companies, for your own risk profile. But that's really the intent. And portfolio construction is a big part of the value that we add too, and kind of providing the tools that allow that portfolio construction to happen very easily.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I just want to hammer home the ability to access. I know that's something that you wanted everyone to always have the ability to access. 2,500, the typical for people that haven't done private market investing before, it's always a 6-figure game, if not 7. To be like, we don't do it for any less than blah, blah, blah. Like the accessibility to this is huge. So yeah. I'm very grateful for you partnering with us, doing the work that you do. And, full disclosure, I feel like I need to do my disclosure thing. This is not a solicitation. I am a client. Like I do invest in these things myself. You should absolutely, make sure this is appropriate for your risk tolerance and talk to your financial advisor to see if it makes sense. Do your homework, and I think all that said, I like saying those disclaimers because if you do your homework, you will see that yes, these are great opportunities, but also the way that you put these opportunities out there is by far, in my opinion, the best way to gain access in the industry that I've seen. And I've looked at a lot of different ways to do it. So you do a really good job, and I'm very, very appreciative for you, doing what you do and giving us an opportunity to partner with you.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So with that, I'm gonna sign off, and I definitely appreciate all the info. If anybody is watching this wants additional info, you can contact me, contact Aaron. Happy to walk through more things, and we do these every 6 months or so. Still?
Yeah.
So every 6 months we'll probably come back and do a little update, but this is a rolling thing. There's always updates, and again, any questions, feel free to shoot them out. We're happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor.